That is a ridiculous question, and I
Yes or no?
No.
I will
Mr.
take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Right out of the gate, you can see exactly where this is going. This isn't a serious inquiry. This is a pre-planned theatrical hit job, plain and simple. We're seeing a seasoned diplomat, a man who has served this country for decades under multiple presidents, being set up for a public smear by a congresswoman who seems more interested in creating viral clips than in actual governance. This kind of behavior is exactly what's wrong with our political discourse today. It's not about finding truth. It's about shaming and silencing your opponents. It's not about policy. It's about performance. We're going to watch the full exchange, and then we'll break down exactly why this kind of political grandstanding is so unprofessional and, frankly, dangerous for the country. If you're tired of seeing these kinds of political games, do me a favor. Hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed for more honest analysis.
Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
That
was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a
This
question.
committee can attack
On February
a witness
8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
that was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld, is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. The question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
All right, so you've seen the whole thing. It's just as bad as it started, isn't it? Let's be very clear about what we just witnessed. That was not a hearing. That was a show trial. First, let's talk about Elliott Abrams. Here is a man with an incredible depth of experience in foreign policy. Does he have a controversial past? Yes. He's been involved in high-stakes foreign policy for 40 years. It comes with the territory. And he pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor for which he was pardoned. Ilhan Omar brings this up not to establish a pattern of untruthfulness, but to immediately poison the well and dismiss anything he could possibly say. It's a classic ad hominem attack. She doesn't want to debate his ideas, she wants to disqualify him as a person. And notice how every time he tries to provide context, or even just answer her loaded questions, she cuts him off saying, "That wasn't a question," or "I reserve my time." She wasn't there for a dialogue, she was there to read her monologue. Now, let's talk about Representative Omar. The level of disrespect and arrogance on display is just staggering. She asks him to answer complex geopolitical questions about events that happened decades ago with a simple yes or no. That's not a search for truth, that's a trap. It's a tactic used to force someone into a soundbite that can be used against them. Yes or no? Do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement? That is a disgusting, bad faith question. It's designed to imply he's a monster, and any answer other than a simple no is framed as an admission of guilt. Mr. Abrams was right to call the question ridiculous. He rightly pointed out that the fabulous achievement was the establishment and survival of democracy in El Salvador, a fact Omar conveniently ignores. And this isn't an isolated incident. This is a pattern of behavior from Representative Omar that proves time and time again that she needs to go. This is a woman who fled a war-torn nation, was welcomed by the United States as a refugee, was given a top-tier education, and was ultimately elected to the United States Congress, the very definition of the American dream. And how does she use that incredible opportunity? She uses her platform to consistently denigrate the country that gave her everything. We see it in this hearing, where she's more interested in attacking an American diplomat than addressing the crisis in Venezuela. We see it in her other statements, where she consistently seems to sympathize more with America's adversaries than with America itself. This pattern of rhetoric, which often seems to excuse or downplay violence and extremism, is deeply concerning from a U.S. representative. It shows a fundamental lack of appreciation for the opportunities she's been given, and a disturbing lack of respect for the nation she swore an oath to serve. When you watch this video, you're not just watching a tense committee hearing. You're watching a perfect example of someone who does not understand or appreciate the gravity of their office. She treats it like a stage for activism instead of a seat of governance. Elliott Abrams was there to discuss serious policy, and he was met with a childish and insulting performance. The American people, especially the people of her district in Minnesota, deserve a representative who is serious, professional, and genuinely grateful for the honor of serving this great nation. And frankly, Ilhan Omar has proven, time and time again, that she is not that person.